It's funny how the heart can knock you out harder than any punch ever could. I used to think I was immune to that kind of pain until I met him in the ring. When I first saw Adrian Cole, he was a storm wrapped in muscle and quiet rage. The way he moved, fluid but feral, made the crowd hold its breath. And me? I was the one holding the scorecard, pretending my heartbeat wasn't echoing louder than the bell. I was just a judge. He was the fighter. That was supposed to be it. But fate has this cruel sense of humor, the kind that makes you fall for the one person you're forbidden to touch. The night everything changed was humid, the kind of sticky summer air that smells like sweat, blood, and adrenaline. Madison Square Garden pulsed with noise. Adrian was fighting for the state title, his career hanging on a thread after a string of brutal matches. He needed a win, and I needed control. Judges don't fall for boxers. We stay neutral, detached, professional. But every time Adrian looked at me from across the ring, eyes dark and alive with fire, I forgot where neutrality ended and obsession began. He wasn't the typical athlete, no arrogance, no staged bravado. He fought like someone chasing ghosts. I wanted to know who those ghosts were. After his match, a bloody victory that left his opponent broken and the crowd roaring, he found me near the locker rooms. His left eye was swelling, his lips split, but that damn smile was still there. "You scored me a little too fair," he joked, leaning close enough that I could smell the copper tang of blood mixed with cologne. "I don't play favorites," I said, but my voice betrayed me, too soft, too shaky. "Good," he whispered. "Then I'll just have to make you want to." That was how it started, a dangerous dance between what's right and what feels right. Late-night texts that blurred into calls, then into whispered meetings after matches. He'd sneak into my apartment still smelling of sweat and victory, drop his gloves on the floor, and kiss me like he was claiming one more win. But love doesn't play fair in a world built on rules and reputation. Word got around. Whispers spread through the Federation, a judge fraternizing with a fighter. I could lose everything, and so could he. The night of the national qualifier, Adrian was a mess. He hadn't slept in 2 days. "They're watching us," he said, pacing like a caged animal. "If I lose, they'll think you helped me. If I win, they'll say it's because of you. You're going to win because you're good," I said, though my voice trembled. "You've always been good." He grabbed my face with both hands, eyes burning. "No, Leo. I'm going to win because I love you." And then the bell rang. The match was brutal, more than any I'd seen him fight. Every punch landed like it came from a place of fury and fear. The crowd screamed, the cameras flashed, and somewhere deep inside, I knew something terrible was going to happen. In the final round, his opponent, a tank of a man named Bruno Vega, caught him with a left hook so vicious it silenced the arena. Adrian's body crumpled before it even hit the mat. I remember standing up, my chair crashing behind me, the world going mute except for my heartbeat hammering in my ears. "Call the medics," someone shouted. I didn't realize I was already in the ring, kneeling beside him, his blood pooling beneath my hands. His eyes fluttered open for half a second, and he tried to smile. "Told you I'd win," he whispered. Then he went still. The next thing I knew, we were in the hospital. Machines beeped steadily, tubes snaked around his arms, and I sat there, covered in his blood, wondering if love had just killed the only person who ever saw me. Days passed. Reporters called. The commission suspended me pending investigation. My reputation gone. My job gone. None of it mattered. All that mattered was whether he'd wake up. Every day I read to him. Old fight reports, newspaper clippings, even his own words from the texts he'd sent me. "You said you'd take me to the coast," I whispered once, holding his cold hand. "Said you'd teach me to surf even though you can't swim. Remember that?" No answer. I started to think this was my punishment, to love someone who might never love me back again, at least not consciously. But one night when the city outside was drenched in rain and thunder, his fingers twitched. Then, slowly, his eyes opened. The first sound Adrian made was a low groan, rough and hoarse, the kind of sound that drags your soul out of your body. I nearly fell off the chair. "Adrian," I whispered, too afraid to believe. His eyelids fluttered, and then those familiar dark eyes, dazed but alive, locked on mine. Leo. His voice cracked like a broken bell. You look like hell. A strangled laugh tore out of me, half sob, half disbelief. I wanted to touch him, to prove he was real, but I was terrified he'd vanish again if I did. Don't ever do that again, I said, my voice trembling. You hear me? No more heroics, no more taking hits you can't get up from. He smiled weakly. Guess I owe you that one. His hand moved, fingers brushing mine. How long was I out? 2 weeks, I said softly. 2 weeks of hell. His expression changed, a flicker of pain shadowing his face. The fight, the Federation. Don't, I interrupted. Don't think about that now. But of course, Adrian always thought about everything. Even lying there, pale and weak, he carried the weight of the world like he was afraid someone else might drop it. Leo, they'll come for you, he murmured. For us. I don't care, I said, voice rising. I don't care if I lose my job. My name, I just need you to stay. He stared at me for a long time, his chest rising and falling with the rhythm of the machines. Then he whispered, You always cared too much, didn't you? I let out a shaky laugh, wiping my face. Maybe I did. But this time, I'm not sorry. The following weeks were a blur of recovery and reckoning. The commission launched an investigation. The media dug up photos, interviews, anything they could twist into scandal. Judge sleeps with boxer he scores. Headlines bled across every sports page. I resigned before they could fire me. Adrian's license was suspended indefinitely. They said it was for his health, but everyone knew it was punishment for daring to love someone he shouldn't. We spent those early months in a small apartment overlooking the Hudson River, where the city noise was distant enough to forget, but close enough to remind us we hadn't disappeared. He walked with a limp for a while. His speech slurred when he was tired. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. I knew lucky was just another word for broken but breathing. Some nights, he'd wake in a sweat, fists clenched, eyes wild. I'd hold him until he remembered where he was. Sometimes he'd apologize. Sometimes he'd just cry. But then there were mornings soft, golden ones where he'd make coffee, shirtless and smiling, sunlight catching the scar along his temple. I'd watch him and think, maybe love isn't about winning or losing. Maybe it's about staying when everything else walks away. One day, months later, he took me to the old boxing gym downtown. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts. The ring rope sagged, the punching bags leaned with age. I'm not fighting again, he said. But I want to teach. Kids, maybe. The ones who've got nowhere else to go. I smiled. You'd be good at that. He turned to me, eyes soft. You think they'll forgive us? I think forgiveness is overrated, I said. We survived. That's enough. He laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from him since the hospital, and pulled me close. That night, we stood on the rooftop of our building, the city glittering beneath us. The wind smelled like rain, like possibility. Do you ever miss it? I asked. The ring, he said. No. The noise. The crowd. The chaos. He thought for a long moment. Sometimes, he admitted. But then I look at you, and I realize I've already won. It was such a simple thing to say, but it hit me harder than any punch he'd ever thrown. I kissed him, then slow, steady, like time had stopped keeping score. His hand found the back of my neck, fingers warm against my skin, and for the first time in forever, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was home. Later, when the city lights dimmed and only the hum of the streets below filled the air, he whispered, Do you regret it? I shook my head. No. I regret waiting so long to say I love you. He smiled, that lopsided, stubborn smile I'd fallen for, and pulled me closer until our foreheads touched. Then don't wait anymore. I didn't. We didn't talk about the Federation again. We didn't talk about the people who judged us, or the dreams we'd lost. Because in that moment, none of it mattered. We'd been two men from different corners of the same ring, one with gloves, one with a pen, both fighting the same invisible war. And somehow, against every odd, love had thrown the final punch. Months later, Adrian opened his small boxing school. He called it the second round. Kids came from every corner of the city, rough, loud, hopeful. He taught them more than just how to fight. He taught them how to get back up. Sometimes, when the gym was empty, he'd call me onto the mat. "Come on, Judge," he'd tease. "Let's see if you've learned anything." I'd laugh, throw a terrible jab, and he'd catch it, twist my wrist gently, pulling me in until our chests met. "You still hit like a scorekeeper," he'd whisper, and kiss me before I could protest. And in those quiet, stolen moments, surrounded by echoes of gloves and laughter, I realized something: maybe we were both still fighters. Only now we were finally on the same side. The world could judge all it wanted. Love had already given its verdict. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.